Okay. All right, guys. I'm excited for this episode. This is with Tony Lamberto, and Tony has been part of Fine Home Contracting really from the very beginning. And when we started to scale, you started in sales. You're kind of more playing the GM position right now, but you know, I want to. This is an exciting episode because it's you've been through all the ups and downs with me. And but maybe let's just start where what got you into this? I know when you came to me, you were with Pella, but maybe
Mm.
give a little history of what you did beforehand and you know, all that fun stuff.
I mean, I can go back to when I was 14 if you want.
Love it.
Actually, my grandfather was a custom home builder in New Jersey. Uh, had really only an eighth grade education and decided he needed to do something with his life to help support his family in eighth grade. And went to work for a guy learning how to frame a house, and then he learned how to, finish a house after that. And then eventually he's like, well, I can do this on my own. So he started building custom homes, and he was looking for some help in the summers. He came to my brother and I and our cousins, and the only one to raise his hand was me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds like that could be fun. And he made it very clear right up front. I'm not bringing you in to sweep the floors and pick up the trash. I'm bringing you in to teach you how to do stuff. And the first thing he taught me to do was how to put a roof on. At 14, I'm up on 2 stories up on the roof, putting shingles down. And I loved it. I loved working with him. I spent the summer there. Any vacations I had from school, any weekends that he was working, I did it. And I learned how to do everything. I mean, literally, he was like, I don't care what it is, you're going to learn it. And if you screw it up, you're going to do it over. And if you screw it up a second time, I'm not going to pay you anymore. So, so I had to learn how to do it and how to do it right. And then, like everyone else of my generation, we were told, yeah, you don't want to go into the trades. You don't want to become a carpenter. You don't want to build houses. There's no money in it. The economy is terrible. 1980, I graduated high school and went off to college. And even my grandfather was like, yeah, listen, go to college first. And if you get out of college and you still want to do this, then, yeah, we'll talk when you get out. And by the time I got out of college, he retired. So that wasn't an option. And I kind of went in a different direction. I went into lending and financing and insurance. So had an insurance agency, had 20-some people working for me, had a lot of sleepless nights trying to make sure all those 20 people got fed. Decided to sell that, went into financing, and then I became a VP of lending for a bank where we did a lot of 203K and construction lending, and that kind of became my niche, and I really learned that product and was able to bring that to the bank that really hadn't done that before.
And that we're obviously that's so valuable for what we're doing with the 203K stuff. And we because of you, we've we're probably the experts in that. I think when we deal with some of these lenders with we're telling them how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those conversations are fun. They'll tell me, oh, no, well, it's this. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not really. We can do it this way. And like, no, you don't know. And I'm like, yeah, the 250, 203Ks I did per year.
Right.
Probably tells me that I do know. And
Yeah.
then they'll come back to you and go, oh, yeah, well, I looked at it. We'll make an exception this time. No, it's not an exception.
That's actually the rules.
Yeah.
So you were in that, and then kind of where'd you?
So then in '08 was terrible for banking.
Mhm.
And so I stuck it out till the end of 2010. But my position went from directing the lending, was underwriting. It was the closing department. It was servicing because we serviced most of our own loans. It was everything that we did around lending fell under me to, yes, you still have to do all that, but now you're going to be our regulatory manager and you're going to deal with all the new regulations. And the only thing I did day and night was read through volumes and volumes of regulations and see what are we doing wrong? What do we need to change? And, we were a small community bank. We weren't doing any of those things, but we were still subject to the same thing as everyone else. So 2010, I decided enough of the sleepless nights and 14-hour days, and I decided to leave. And it was a great decision. It was a great run. I learned a lot. I had a great career, but it was time to make a change. And then a friend of mine who I had known for years was working at ABC Supply. And he's like, what are you looking to do with your life? I'm like, well, I don't know. He says, well, listen, come work for me while you figure it out. And there I was. And I went to ABC Supply and kind of moved back towards the building industry at that point. And then while I was there, Pella poached me. ABC Supply started selling Pella as part of their product line. Pella Corporate poached me away from ABC Supply, and that was great until the pandemic hit. And in 2020, they told us we were going to have a couple of weeks of working from home and then a month of working from home. And then they said, yeah, listen, guys, we're letting everybody go because we can't sell anything. We can't open up the factory to build anything. We're pretty much shut down. So all of you guys are laid off. Mm. I was your rep at the time, I believe. And I happened to mention it to you, and you were talking about some things you wanted to do and how you wanted to build a sales team and change the way we're doing business. So we talked, and here I am.
Yeah. And yeah, that was, I do remember. And you know, when you say that, it's like this, the whirlwind of fine home contracting has been relatively short in of what we, you know, kind of where we've ramped up, and now we're sitting and doing, you know, we got lights on us and we're doing a podcast. But yeah, you had come in and we tried to figure out how to you know, sell remodeling, and we brought in like a sales team and, you know, interior designers. And I think, you know, we're still, I think, kind of figuring it out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the problem is that, unlike other industries, you know, you would think that if someone can sell, if they have the sales aptitude and they know how to sell and how to do all the things you need to do to be successful, they could just walk in and plug and play them into the system, right? And we put together some training, some basic training on mostly how to use our systems and what types of things we do in remodeling. But honestly, I think one of the things we learned over the last few years is that it's not plug and play. It's much more complicated than that. And I think part of the problem was we expected people to step in and after a short period of training immediately start to become successful. And for those folks, if they could have stuck it out longer, possibly, they would have been. But the time from start to when they were actually realizing some success was just too big and too far apart. Yeah. And we thought, well, we'll just add more people, or we'll just add a different, you know, well, we'll have sales, and now we'll have designer sales, and we'll have, you know, we'll have a sales manager, and we'll just keep building on that. And the problem is, if the foundation isn't strong, if they don't come in with that knowledge, it's very difficult to get them up and running. And the problem is, where do you get people that have that knowledge? There isn't a place where you could go, oh, I'm going to poach these guys from over here, because not a lot of contractors have a sales team.
Yeah, I mean, most of the contractors out there are, you know, owner-operators, where they're just, you know, they'll go out and sell and then build, and they have that experience. And I think you're absolutely right. That's what was missing. Going in and to do a kitchen or a bathroom, you needed to have, you know, that 20 or 30 years of experience to kind of look at all the nuances. And I feel, you know, the homeowner can sense if you don't know exactly what's going on.
And it makes them nervous.
Yeah.
This is a big investment.
Yeah.
And if they're not confident that you know what you're talking about, they see that right away. They see right through that.
Right. Yeah. And you know, the guys that are out in the field that have the experience don't want to it's not, you know, something that they'd be interested to come in and sell for you. You know, I felt like, you know, and I think we just had Dwayne on before. We were kind of talking about, you know, there hasn't been enough people coming into the industry that, or even, I don't even know if they know, you know, that there exists for, you know, and there's no company, you know, Home Depot and Lowe's, they I think tried it a little bit to do in-home services. They still do flooring, I think, but to remodel, they didn't even really, I think, have a good training. I mean, we had one of the guys from Lowe's.
We did,
and we were like, yes, he's
gonna
be
kill
trained, and he's gonna do good, and like, and we were asking about, like, well, what did they train you? And there he was like, I don't know, how to use CAD. Yeah, I'm like,
how to greet a customer when they walk in. The questions asked them, are you looking to do a kitchen? Or you know, but really didn't have the knowledge to understand what goes into it, other than we're doing a kitchen, and everybody knows we're doing cabinets, and everybody knows we're doing countertops, but nobody realizes all of the other little things that have to happen, you know, to make that happen. You know, the little things in the background. Well, where's the plumbing now? Are we moving anything? We're going to put a window in. What's in that space where the window's going, or you're moving it to?
Is it, if it's vinyl siding outside, it's easier, but if it's, you know, brick,
is it
forget
brick?
it.
Now what?
You know, like there's so many little details. And I think it's interesting that, and I think the other side of it is when you have it's, you know, tough to find those people, and I think we have the hiring process is you can't just take anybody, which is kind of what we in the beginning
For
we're
a
like,
while,
hey, you want to
yeah.
work here? It's fun, everything's
Yeah,
exciting.
we can have a
Come
good
on."
time. Come on in.
Yeah. But I think the other side of it is that homeowners aren't educated.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, when you go into this big remodel and you have a sales team that maybe don't know enough to educate the client, and then the client's not educated, they don't even know what it is. Then it really takes a unique person to be able to get it done, because I think clients end up giving up too.
They do. Yeah, and you make a good point. I was just talking to one of our customers the other day, and they were a little upset about a couple of things, but it was mostly because they just didn't understand.
Right.
And as I started to explain to them why things are, listen, we're remodeling, we're in your home, we know you're going to hate us, but you also have to understand it's a construction site.
Right.
Like it's not gonna look perfect until we're done. And their expectation was, well, all along it's going to be perfect every day.
Right.
I'm going to come home every day and it's going to look perfect, like it's my new kitchen. And it's like, no, why do you think that? And I think the sales rep not understanding the process and how difficult it is to remodel didn't educate the customer on how bad it could be. And I've heard you say it, and I say it too, like, this is going to be a disaster. But we're going to make sure we fix it. We're going to get it done. And when we're done, you're going to love it. Yeah. But I don't know that the sales team, because look, they're trying to sell something because that's how they eat. Yeah. Right. So they're not going to tell them all the bad stuff because they're afraid they're going to scare them away. And in reality, that's actually a very great conversation to have with a customer, because then first of all, they know that there's going to be problems. And if you're at least saying that up front and you're not saying you're perfect, I think that builds a little bit of credibility.
Yeah, you got to climb the mountain to get to the view. And I think the unique, we love those clients that are like, it's a second home. We got one in Bantam now. I mean, it's the lake house. The people are like, we're not using that till next summer. So whenever you're done, and nobody's there, it's good. But it's when you're in somebody's home. I mean, we talk about this all the time, where it's a kitchen. You don't have a kitchen. You have kids. You got to cook.
Yeah. You're washing the pots in the tub.
Yeah.
And then you just, I think one of the customers said, we're so tired of ordering out food.
Yeah.
We just want our kitchen back. Yeah. And it hadn't really been that long, but their expectation was, well, it only takes 2 days to put the cabinets in, we'll have our kitchen back. Yeah. And well, no, then we got to get the countertops templated, and we got to get those installed before we can get the plumbing and the sink and the...
And then the plumber didn't show up that day.
Yeah.
And that pushed it off. So now you don't have that. And then we're all human. We forgot a filler. Yeah. So we have to order that and then that came in. It came in wrong. One of the doors got damaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Order another one.
Yeah.
The flooring company came in and banged everything up. So we got to fix that.
All the trim got destroyed. Yeah, taken off, and it shouldn't have. All that stuff.
Hire the new tile guy that did the backsplash upside down. And now everybody's and you're like. Yeah, we're trying. We're trying.
And people don't like having us there after we're there for a little while. Yeah. And my wife will hate me for saying this, but I don't even like people in my home that I like. Right. No less people that I don't know. Yeah. So if they're going to be there for 3 months every day, I'm going to get tired of that too. But at least if I'm doing that, I understand. Oh well, I know I'm going to have to do that. Right. And I'm not sure we've done a good job educating in a lot of cases, and I think that's where we run into some difficult situations that we need to work through.
Yeah, the education of the client. I mean, Sarah and I are talking about it. Like, home ownership is a lot more than just finding a mortgage broker and them telling you can afford this monthly payment. Yeah. Especially in Connecticut. I mean, it's just the homes you're going to walk into a home that needs remodeling, regardless. I mean, unless you're lucky to buy the 1 or 2 new homes that are being built. Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, how do you see like the future of the remodeling industry, and how do you think what do you think is how people are going to get this all done? For company wise, because I think we know this. Like, it's just there's nobody doing this stuff.
Yeah, and it's hard to find good people that do it, right? So the thing is, there's so much remodeling that needs to be done. And there are so many people out there who say they're remodelers or that they have that experience, and we've learned that the hard way, that yes, they can say that, and they probably did do 20 kitchens, and they're probably all a disaster.
Right.
But I do think that the base of people that we have right now, to be able to attract people and for them to be able to talk with the people we'd like to hire, to make sure that they do have the experience and they do know what they're talking about. You have the experience, you can do that too, but sometimes, you need somebody with a separate set of eyes that is just listening to what the person's saying and can ask a couple of questions that really uncovers it. Yeah, maybe they don't know as much as they know. Like I think Joe and Bob are both good at that, right? Yeah. But I do think it's tough because people aren't necessarily going into the trades. We had someone working for us for a while that had gone to a carpentry school down in South Carolina, I think, right? Yeah. The thing is, though, he wanted to make furniture. Right. He learned some of the basics and certainly could have been trainable, but this isn't what he really wanted to do. So, and you could tell that, he did a pretty good job for us, but it's like he showed up, but he wants to make furniture. Yeah. And build and design furniture, and that's a great career path, but it's not going to work in remodeling, right? Because we're not doing any of that stuff.
And he's few and far between. Like there's only one. He had to go down to South Carolina to even go to school.
Right. And you talk to the trade schools thinking, okay, there must be kids that are going through trade school that want to go into this, to do what we do. And, say, hey, do you have people that maybe do an internship, maybe spend a few hours a day working here and nothing, crickets, you get nothing back. And I think that's a little concerning, but I do think there are people out there still that want to do what we do. Yeah. We just have to find the right people.
Yeah. I think I was trying to, the question was, I was kind of formulating. I should probably have written it down, but yeah, I think you're answering that. Like the future of remodeling, I think it's two-part. We have to get people, interested in the trades. I think some of that is, if you're an electrician or a plumber, you're going to make way more than a college degree.
For sure.
But, it is kind of, I think it's twofold. Getting people more interested and saying it's it's very rewarding to work. But I think also it's two-part, and I think, I had this conversation with a client that wasn't as happy as we would like the other day, and I was talking about it. It's a team sport. I think that it's twofold. If people want to have a successful remodeling industry, the clients need to be educated along with, we need to develop a better workforce for remodeling. So we need to come up with more, if community colleges can offer. I mean, it's an industry. Why doesn't a community college offer some sort of a remodeling class? Yeah,
exactly. They offer it in pretty much everything else.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of dumb stuff.
Why stuff that you're never going to use, but sounds good. Yeah. Right. No, I agree, and I think that's part of it. And being a part of the HBRA, we talk about that a lot at our Remodelers Council meeting, like how do we get people interested in doing this? Right. And we're starting to do some outreach stuff now. There's a couple of different organizations that, Fresh Start Pallets, for example, in Hartford, has a program where they bring people in and teach them how to use a lot of the tools and do the things we do. I watched a video, they were teaching them how to drywall. I watched another one, they were teaching them how to frame. Yep. And we're actually doing our next meeting there in January so that we can kind of see the facility and what they do, because they're trying to develop a workforce. And they're not going to be people that come out and know how to do everything, but they're going to have a basic sense. Right. And they're going to be people that want to do what we do. It just means that you're going to need to bring them in and train them. Right. Which we've talked about that a lot. Training is key in anything we do.
Yeah, because the industry, a lot of older guys that are in their 60s that are closing their shops up at this, and they're not training anybody. Right. And their kids don't want to be in it. So there's a lot of skill sets that are going to be exiting and going to Florida that we have to. And I think the big thing is that we have to elevate the, what people think of the trades. Sure. So that people are attractive. Because honestly, when I got in, I went to trade school, but it was kind of like, well, you went to trade school because you couldn't hack high school, or like some of the programs are out there are, for the bad kids.
Right.
well, you're a bad kid. You got to go to the trade,
100%, yeah.
Rehabilitation, instead of being like, hey, you're super smart. You need to go into remodeling because we need you.
Yeah.
Here's a scholarship.
Yeah.
Or building, or something like that. I think there's some that people go to, and we've hired them, and then we can go back into that stuff. But we hired some good commercial project managers that had the project management degrees. But it's remodeling and it's residential. You have no idea what you're doing.
No idea.
Yeah.
Totally night and day. But I think that's it too. I think building a better, making people feel better about going into this career, as opposed to feeling like, well, I can't do anything else, so I'll do that.
Right.
I look at the work that some of these people do that do work for us, and I'm amazed that they figure this stuff out. And I'm looking at it, and I consider myself, fairly smart.
Right.
And I'm looking at it going, I'm not sure how they did that, but man, that looks great.
Right.
And it's not just, trades isn't just for dummies or people that couldn't do something else.
Yeah.
People that do this are smart.
Yeah.
And we have them working for us and around us. And we see that. I see that on the Remodelers Council when I hear them talking about the things they're doing. These are smart people that chose to do this. Yeah. And we get back to something you said earlier. It is rewarding. Like for me, I've had a lot of different things I've done. I've owned businesses. Been in fairly high positions. I can't say that any of them were as rewarding as this. Even with the challenges and all the things we face on a daily basis, I can't think of anything that's been as rewarding as this. Maybe my part-time fun stuff, being on stage. That's pretty rewarding when people clap for you and laugh at you. Yeah. But this has been really rewarding. And I think if people understood and looked at it that way, because my grandfather had an 8th grade education, but he was so proud of every home he built that he would tell everyone who would listen when he would be going by one of those homes, I built that. Yeah. My daughter lives in that house. I built that for my son-in-law. I built, he just was proud of the work because it was beautiful. Right. And I think we need to instill a little bit of that so that then maybe people might say, hey, maybe I would like to do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this. It's like AI is not going to be able to figure out. The robots can't figure this stuff out anytime soon.
No.
We need people in the trades. And I think I agree with you. I think that's part of the journey the last couple of years has been stressful, is because, we really did care. I mean, you really cared. I mean, we would bring these people in and really want them to be successful. And I think you and me were like, we were a little bit too much of a bleeding heart. Well, we'll help this guy out. And they're like, oh, no, he's not going to really make it.
Yeah, I know. I think at one point before, when we were doing some hiring, we got to the point we said, unless everybody's a hell yeah. Right? Yeah. And then even then, it was like, okay, well, Dave is, so I'll go with that. As opposed to being like, I'm not so sure.
Because it was tough. It was tough to actually find people.
It was.
And then I think the same thing. I mean, we felt the same way with the clients. I mean, you'd hire the wrong people, and then you would also then have clients were unhappy, but also they were uneducated, so they didn't realize it was going to be bumpy. But then we would feel that too, because we wanted the reward of doing nice project, and we were doing. I was looking through the other day, like all the projects that are in the warranty section. We did a lot of projects that there was not a problem with.
Yeah.
But the ones we had a problem with, that's all we dealt with.
Right. And those are the ones that stick out. And that's what they always say, right? Like you don't always get the good, good job, nice work. But if there's one little thing wrong, you definitely will hear about that. And then that's what you're focusing on. Because I know for me, I want to make sure everybody's 100% happy.
Right.
So I'm going to try to find a way to fix that. Right. And sometimes you can't fix it. You just have to say, okay, listen, I understand. Maybe they're just not happy people. Right. Sometimes we have to not put it 100% on ourselves. Right. Sometimes it's on us, and we've got to fix that and see what we can do to make them happy. But you're right. You don't hear from all the ones that are thrilled about the work we did because, the squeaky, what's that? The squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of thing.
Yeah. And they get the oil. That's for sure. And it's tough. It's tough because that brings the whole team down. You have, and I think, talking about that team sport, I mean, and going back to me having that conversation the other day with the client, we're all here to try to get this accomplished. And if you're going in the other direction, it's a messy process. It's very, if it's not if. Everything is going to go wrong. It's
Yeah.
how do we circumvent things and step over the problems and get to the finish line and figure out how to resolve this stuff. Because I mean, it happens. I mean, I think, even what people don't realize that we can get, is the building departments. Every building department's slightly different. And we walk in and they're like, kind of talk about that one in Kent. It took us 8 months because there was,
There were 4 different organizations besides the town, the River Commission and the Land Commission and the Kent School, and everybody had to give approval, and the town wouldn't help. They're like, no, you got to get all that stuff first.
Right.
And, each one was like, well, you need to go to the Housatonic River one first before you can come to the tribal one. Yeah. If they approve it, then we'll look at it. And months go by. And unfortunately, the customer, fortunately, he's living in another place. He's not trying to live in the home where we're doing the addition. But, 8 months is a very long time. And I don't know that any of us could have predicted it would take that long. Yeah. But, it certainly, that happens, right? If the building department will not move forward, we can't move forward. And we've had some building departments where we know what the code is, but their code or what they want is different. Right. We have one now that we're working on in Torrington where certainly we're within what the code would say we should do. Yeah. And the inspector's like, nope, this is what I want.
Just having a bad day and throw something out. It could be, we just implemented the new 23 code. So, and no other building department's done that. So we haven't even priced for it. Yeah. The electrical was a big deal when they upgraded to all these arc fault, breakers, and it's like that's an extra couple $1,000 for service upgrade. If you haven't priced for that, and then you go back to the client, by the way, it's a tough,
because then they're like, well, why didn't you know that? Well,
right. Yeah. And they're mad at you and they don't realize, like, hey, this is a, it's a moving target, all of the time that we have to try to, we're not even trying to hit, we're just trying to hit the dartboard at this point.
Exactly. And I think, it goes back to, we're trying to make customers happy, trying to do the right thing, bringing people in and hiring them and they don't understand that moving target. Right. And so they can't possibly say to the customer, by the way, these are the types of things that might happen. Right. And if they do, we're going to work on it, but it could delay your project. Right. We might not be done in 6 weeks like we thought we were going to be done. Yeah. It might be 6 months. With the one in Kent, we're underway now and everything's great, but to get to that point, and if the customer had been living there while they were waiting for their addition, it would have been a nightmare.
Disaster. Yeah. I think there's a rattlesnake something up there too.
There
it's
is,
like
yeah,
the rattlesnake capital of Connecticut.
Yeah, some kind of reserve, or they're protected on that land or something.
Which we told the guys that no one wanted to go there.
They're like, you what? You want me to dig where?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's what we found. Moving forward, going into 2024, I think we're retooling the team. Unfortunately, you've had to get more of, more subcontractors in just to get more efficiency and timing. Because our guys, we had a big crew over this year, but we weren't able to produce quick enough. Right. And the clients were, they loved everybody, but they didn't love that we were there for 8 months.
For sure.
So going into next year, I think, being more even kind of toying with, I think the last couple of the ones we've been doing is do we want to do cost plus? Right. Because any of these big projects, you can lose your shirt. Oh yeah. Or you can make too much. You can make almost too much money because you have to say, hey, I've got to we don't know what's going to go wrong, so we're going to charge you more just to protect ourselves.
Yeah. And that's a fine balance, pricing it, right? Because I look at that and I go, well, all these things could happen here. Can I actually price for all those things? Right. Because now, you're right. It's not that you make too much money, but you can overprice it. Right. And some of those things will never happen. Right. But then on the other hand, if you ignore all of that and you underprice it, well, you can't do that too often before it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're changing that a little bit. We're bringing in more of the expertise in the beginning of the sales. Trying to bring people more in here, I think, has been helpful the last couple projects. And I think, what I think what we're realizing is going after the clients, something that with bigger projects, but then so that we have the time to educate,
Right.
And explain to them. I think, we got next week, we have somebody coming in for a new build. And they were excited.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, you're the first builder that asked for us to come into the office to meet the team.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a team sport. And I think if anybody gets anything out of this, is like you got to hire the company that you're willing to go through the journey with.
Right.
Because it's a journey.
I mean, if they don't want to spend a little bit of time in the beginning, then they're probably in the long run not going to be the right client, because they're going to just expect that it's going to be done, and they're not going to want to hear any of the education or understand what's going to happen. And so I think the ones that want to come in here are probably better suited for us to educate and to take through the process. And the couple that we've done that with, you can see that. Yeah. A couple of things came up on one we're working on in Berlin, and we had to go back and say, well, in order to get the permit, we need to do this. There wasn't one iota of, what are you talking about?
Right.
They're like, oh, okay.
And because they got it, because they came in and they realized, like, and we kind of gave them, that one's a crazy one too, right? We've got like a sauna tube in the backyard, and now they want perk tests for the septic.
Because it's next to the septic.
We've been doing this a long time, and that was the first one.
That was
the
first.
I'm like,
and and the PM appealed it a little bit. They're like, no, sorry, we're not going to issue the permit unless you do this. Yeah. So what do? So you go back to the client and you explain it, but there wasn't any argument about it, because he's like, no, I understand. Right. If that's what we need to do, then we're going to do it. As opposed to if you hadn't been going through that process and they weren't as trusting as this client was, could have been, well, we're not going to move forward then. That's it. We're done. Yeah. And I think that's where, again, when you're trying to build a sales team, sometimes you're trying to shoehorn everything in to make it fit, because you want to get the project sold, because you want them to make money. Not that you're doing anything wrong, but you might push a little harder to make those things happen, where sometimes you got to step back and go, no, this isn't a good fit. We're not going to move with this. Yeah.
Well, Tony, I think we there's going to be lots more podcasts about this where we dive into all the things we learned the last couple of years. But honestly, I'm glad you Pella laid you off. It's been quite the run, quite the ride. Yeah. And I think 2024 is going to be great. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I really am.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Yep.